Hey guys, welcome yet again to yet another home range poultry video. Now, this video that we're doing today is actually a follow-up to the last video which we did, which was just basically giving you figures of how much you're going to make if you're going to keep about 200 chicken. And we actually discovered that with just 200 chicken, you can actually make upwards of up to 500,000 shillings. Now, as a follow-up video, on today's video, I want to ask, how do you actually do it? So on today's video, guys, I'm going to give you a step-by-step guide of exactly what you need to do to start your poultry farm today, so that 2019, by the time it's over, you have an operational poultry farm that is actually making up some money. The first thing that you're going to ask yourself is, what do you need to set up a poultry farm? Now, number one, what you need is actually the land itself. So for this video, I'm going to assume three things: that you already have the land, and that two, you've already set up infrastructure, like servant quarters for your guys to stay in, and three, that there's already water installation in the place, meaning there is already water, the piping has been done and water is available at your place. So before you even think about setting up a poultry farm, those three things must already be in place. Then once you have those three things in place, now let's get into the meat of what exactly do you need to set up the actual poultry farm for your birds. So the first thing that you need is obviously a poultry house. Now, someone will ask you, what kind of poultry house will you use? Now, those are the kind of things that we actually discussed during our training days. So I would highly encourage you to attend one of our training to understand the various type of houses that are there. What are the advantages between the deep litter system and the raised floor system? And they also keep hearing of the caging system, which perhaps I should just mention here, that we actually do not use cages for Kienyeji chicken. Please do attend our training. You will understand more about that. So for purposes of this video, we will actually look at poultry housing based on the type of houses that we at Home Range Poultry use. And the type of houses that we use is what I usually call the raised floor poultry house. Now, a raised floor poultry house is a type of a house where you find that your birds don't stay inside their chicken droppings. So the chicken droppings drops down and your birds are staying a layer up. That ensures that your birds are not always in contact with their chicken droppings. And of course, that has so many advantages, because for one, you make sure that your birds are not constantly in contact with the dirt, and that causes them diseases. Now, the type of house that you decide this raised floor poultry house, how big should it be? Again, there's what is recommended, the stocking intensity that is recommended for Kienyeji chicken. I won't get into that because that's again something that is covered into great detail during our training days. So I will just go ahead and tell you straight up that if you're going to do a raised floor poultry house for about 200 birds, then that is going to cost you about 80,000. Guys, this is the point where you get your paper, you get your pen, because we're going to do a lot of figures today, just like the other video, to give you guys a very good idea of exactly what is going to take you to set up a poultry farm. Now, what is going to be in this raised floor poultry house? First, there's going to be an external feeding system, which is going to ensure that when you or your workers are actually putting food for the chicken, they don't go inside to get into contact with the birds, but rather from the outside, they actually have an external feeding system which you're able to put feed for them. So the second thing that you might find that this raised floor house must actually be able to have is a rear side laying nest, to ensure that when the chickens start laying eggs and when you're collecting your eggs, again, you don't go inside and get into contact with the birds. You actually have a section at the back of the house where you actually go and collect your eggs. And of course, this raised floor poultry house must be able to provide proper ventilation for your birds. Remember, if chicken are kept in an enclosed area where they don't have proper ventilation, you will always have issues to do with diseases, and guys, we don't want that. The other thing which is extremely important about a raised floor house is that it creates the option of ensuring that the chicken manure drops below where the birds are staying, like I mentioned, and this ensures that it's also easy for you to clean that poultry house and collect that manure without actually disturbing the birds or being in contact with the birds. Now, the second thing that you need in setting up your 200 Kienyeji chicken farm is obviously the drinkers and the feeders. Now, this raised floor poultry house that I've just discussed, we've already said that it comes with an external feeding system. That's a feeder. However, you still need to provide some supplementary feeders, especially in instances such that when you have a disease, you may need to separate some birds and keep them separately. So you will need to have some particular type of feeders. Now, you find that when you have chicks, from when they are day old all the way to when they get 1 month, they're not going to use the main poultry house. You'll have a brooder which is set aside. And again, that's an issue that is discussed during our training days. So come over, learn about brooding, how to build a brooder. Also, check out our previous videos. You will see a video which we've actually discussed on how to actually set up a brooder. So Since we know that the drinkers and the feeders which are going to be used in the brooder are different, it means that when you're setting up your poultry farm, that's something that you have to have in your mind. Why? So that you budget for it and you buy those special kind of drinkers and feeders. Now, you find that for chicks, you can go ahead and use the 3-liter chicken drinkers. So for those ones, for 200 chicks, you'll only need about 4 drinkers, and each one of them costs about 250 shillings. So 1,000 shillings is going to go to the drinkers. Next is the feeders. Now when chicks are in the brooder, we use a special kind of feeder which is long and that has holes. So for those kind of feeders, you find that one feeder usually services about 50 chicks. So for your 200 birds, you would actually need about 4 pieces, and each one of that goes for about 450. So total again comes to 1,800. Now your chicks have moved from the brooder and now they are going to go into the main poultry house. So you find that from 1 month to 5 months, during which time they'll actually be in the poultry house, you still need about 2 or 3, or let's just say 4 chicken feeders, the circular one. So go and buy those big chicken feeders, the round ones. You need about 4 pieces, and each one goes for about 500 shillings. So that's another 2,000 shillings that has gone into the feeders. The next thing that you actually need, and a lot of people don't think about, are the tools and equipment. What tools and equipment do you need when you're setting up your poultry farm or to run your poultry farm? Now, obviously, you need some watering cans. So go to the shops, hardware shops, buy about 2 watering cans. Each one of them costs about 300 shillings. So that's 600 shillings that you've spent. You need a wheelbarrow. Why do you need a wheelbarrow if you have a poultry farm? Simple. Your manure will start collecting. You need to carry it. You can't carry it in a small sack. That will make work very difficult for your worker. So go ahead, get a wheelbarrow. One wheelbarrow costs about 5,000 shillings. Get a nice good wheelbarrow. The next thing, machetes, man, pangas. You need, get a piece. It's about 500 shillings. Obviously, you need the place to be kept clean all the time, so you need some brooms. So get about 2 pieces, just in case one breaks, the guy has another one. So it will cost you about 200 shillings. That's another 400 shillings that you're going to go into brooms. The next thing that you need is a hammer. Why do you need a hammer? Because occasionally he might need to do repairs to the poultry house. You also need a spade. What is a spade for? You have something like manure. Of course, he's not going to collect it with his hands, so he needs a nice spade to actually be able to collect it and put it in the wheelbarrow. Okay, now all these things are connecting now. A good spade will cost you about 500 shillings. The next thing that you need are just buckets, the 20-liter buckets or the 60-liter buckets. Now you need quite a number of them. Why? You need to be cleaning your drinkers, your feeders, you need to mix, whether it's multivitamins or medication for your birds. So you need standalone buckets. So go and get about 4 pieces. Each one of them will cost you about 500 shillings. There you go, 2,000 shillings on buckets. And then finally, on the tools and equipment, and this is something that a lot of people don't actually think about, is the knapsack sprayer. This is a sprayer that you need to put the disinfectant in for you to be spraying around the poultry farm. So get a good quality sprayer. Please don't get the cheap Chinese knockoffs which go for about 1,000 shillings or 2,000 shillings. Those things will not give you service or break within the first few days of operation. So get a good knapsack sprayer. Something that costs about 7,500 shillings would be good enough. And it will last you forever. The final thing that you need when you're setting up your poultry farm is obviously the workers' protective gear. Now, a lot of guys don't actually think about the welfare of their workers. The tools that they need, the clothing, the protective gear. And when you don't do that, your workers don't get to work in a comfortable environment. And someone who does not work in a comfortable environment is not going to deliver. So do yourself a favor, spend some money, buy your workers some very good protective gear. What are some of these protective gear that I'm talking about? Get your worker a pair of gumboots. Nice, good quality, hardy gumboots. Black ones always do. You want them to look nice? Buy white ones. Hell, buy pink ones if you want for the ladies who are working for you. But get a good pair of gumboots. So a good pair of gumboots goes for about 1,500 shillings. The second thing that they need are the overalls. Now you don't need your workers to be wearing their own clothes to work for you. Okay? So what you do, get an overall for them that they can be wearing over their clothes so that any dirt is actually going to go into the overall and they keep their own clothes clean. That's very, very important. A nice pair of overall will go for about 1,500 shillings. The next thing that you need is a dust coat. Sometimes they are not doing any heavy duty work, so they just need something nice to put on top when they are collecting their eggs and all that. So get them a dust coat. A pair of dust coat will go for about 1,000 shillings. And then of course, finally, you need to get them those long plastic gloves. Those long plastic gloves that get up to here are very, very important. Why? Because your worker is going to be handling chemicals such as disinfectants. He needs to have protective gear for him to be able to handle some of those chemicals because some of those chemicals are actually very dangerous and poisonous. Now we know the things that you need and the cost. So the final thing that I want to discuss is what is actually the final figure. If you want to set up a 200 Kienyeji poultry farm, how much money do you actually need to set it up? So let's do the summary for all the things that we've discussed. So we've discussed a poultry house that is going to take about 80,000 shillings. The drinkers and the feeders are going to take about 4,800 shillings. The farm tools and equipments that we discussed are going to take about 17,000 shillings. And of course, the workers' gear is going to cost about 5,000 shillings. And then obviously, throw in there a miscellaneous cost of about 10,000 shillings. This is going to go towards, small things like I always say, you go to your farm, you need some drinking water, use the miscellaneous cost. If you total up all that, it comes to about 116,800. I want to teach you a trick to become a successful poultry farmer. When you're setting up your farmer, make sure that you put the labor cost as a setup cost or as a startup cost, especially for the first 5 months. Because if you don't do that, you're going to start up your project, and remember, this project is not going to be bringing in any money for the first 5 months. So it's just going to be consuming and consuming. So if you hadn't budgeted for the labor aspect, and there's no way you can operate without labor, if you hadn't budgeted for that particular aspect, when you are starting off, your project is going to collapse. So apart from the 116,800, add labor cost. So like we discussed in the previous video, assuming you pay your worker 8,000 shillings, so for 5 months, that's 40,000 shillings. And now this will help you understand why in some of the calculations that we've done on cost of rearing the 200 birds, we've not put the labor cost. That's because we actually anticipate, or rather calculate, the labor cost to be sort of a setup cost when you're setting up your poultry farm. The next thing that a lot of guys actually don't budget for, and that is extremely crucial to add setup of your farm, is the training. Guys, how do you expect that you're going to make 500,000 shillings when you don't know how to take care of your birds, when you don't know how to minimize mortalities, when you don't know about the marketing aspect? How will you make money? So yes, I know some guys say training is expensive. Yes, so is farming. If you want to make some good money out of this, you better be ready to spend some money to make way more money. So budget for training. Put that in your budget early enough when you're doing your budget estimates. And again, when you attend training, you are able to grasp very critical aspects, especially to do with the care of your birds and setup. That will ensure that you actually save yourself money, because you will not be relying on external people who they just want to make money from you. You won't be relying on them, but everything that they say about the cost of construction and all that, you actually have it. So you will actually be saving yourself a lot of money by attending training. So of course, guys, we do training once per month. Anytime you want to get details about training, you could go to our website www.homerange.Poultry.com, or you could just send an SMS 0727 200 116 or 0786 942 052. So guys, if you total up all these costs that I've talked about, you will find that now you have a grand total setup cost of 161,300 shillings. Let's call it 162,000. So guys, you know how much it's going to cost you to set up your 200 Kienyeji poultry farm. You need 162,000. I know it sounds a lot, but you know what? I'm gonna get down to how do you actually plan for this setup cost? How do you go about it, planning on raising that money? So that I'm gonna discuss on a separate video. So finally, guys, you know the cost, you know what you need to buy. I have a question then. How exactly do you implement it? Now, this is usually one of the most difficult parts, because someone will go ahead and do all their costing, but they have no idea where to start. So where do you start today? So I'm gonna give you a step-by-step guide of exactly what you're going to do to execute your poultry setup plan. So number one, I'm assuming that you already have the land resource. So ensure the land resource is secured, whether it's your own place, whether it's a place that you've leased, whether it's a family's place. Make sure that you've already allocated a space. And guys, for 200 poultry farm, you don't need such a huge space. Any space as small as even as 40 foot by 40 feet is actually more than enough for you to put up structures, to do a 200 Kienyeji poultry farm, and even some infrastructure for your staff. So you don't need a big piece of land. So make sure that the land resource is secured. Step two, you're going to go and attend training at this point. So you won't start and do all these things and buy all these things, then leave training to be the last thing. No, training is really going to help you even cut down on a lot of costs to do with the setup cost, because you get to see a lot of things that we do at the farm. You get to understand how we do it on the low or on the cheap, and you actually be able to save a lot of money when you start implementing your own project. The third step is to ensure that the infrastructure is already there on the farm. Which infrastructure? The one that I talked about. There need to be a servant quarter for the person who will be working for you. There need to be a store there, to store your tools and equipment and feeds and all that. And then of course, there needs to be water. For you to do poultry farming, you don't need a farm that has any access to electricity. The key thing that you actually need is water. So once you have your infrastructure in place, the next thing that you do, order your chicks. I know you've not done your poultry house. Yes, don't wait to do a poultry house for you to order chicks. Why? Because generally, wherever place that you order chicks, they always come with a waiting period. Order your chicks so that during that waiting period, you can now continue to implement your plan. Once you've ordered your chicks, the next thing, now start building your poultry house. We help you do a proper poultry house by providing you with the bill of quantities to tell you all the materials that you actually need to do your raised for poultry house, and we also tell you how much that is actually going to cost you, so that you actually know how much this poultry house is going to cost you to set it up. And the good thing with this, having these BQs and even the 3D illustrations, is that they help you. When you talk to a fundi, you're actually able to put everything into perspective of exactly what you want. So all you need to do is get that material from us, send us an email or send us an SMS request for these 3D drawings and illustrations of the poultry house. Once you have this material, all you need to do is just get a fundi, go to a hardware shop, buy all these materials yourself. Don't send someone to buy them for you. Go yourself, buy all these hardware materials, come put them at your farm, and hey, you have your fundis. They implement exactly the housing exactly as per our 3D drawings and illustrations with all the dimensions as they are, and you'll be able to come up with a fantastic poultry house. The next step, acquire your drinkers and feeders. Okay, have them ready, have them cleaned, have them disinfected as is required, or as you're going to teach you during the training days, so that they are ready, awaiting your chicks to come. And once you have all these things in place, now is the time for you to hire labor. Now I see guys making a huge mistake. A guy decides that he wants to start poultry farming, and tomorrow he decides to hire someone. So now you go for almost 3-4 months paying someone who's working at your farm. Technically he's not working because he's not really doing anything. The chicken are not there, but you're still paying him. So understand that hiring someone is step number 7. And when you hire this someone is when you go ahead and now acquire the protective gear for this guy. Step number 8, you need now to acquire the tools and equipment. Step number 9, now you need to buy your feeds. Now, if you're going to be on the Homerange Outgrowers program, which you guys can visit our website www.homerangepoultry.com to understand what the Outgrowers program is about, then you don't have to worry about the feeds. Why? Because your chicks come together with the feeds. Now, if you're not on the program and you just decide to buy your chicks, cool, no problem. You need to have attended training for you to understand how much feed you will actually need, so that at this step number 9, which you're buying feeds, you know how much feeds to actually acquire. My advice to you, you can always acquire feed on a month-to-month basis. You don't actually have to acquire feeds for the entire period, just to month-to-month basis. And actually, even for our Outgrowers program, the feed is actually supplied on a month-to-month basis. So finally, guys, your feed is in place. Step number 10, final step, receive your chicks. Chicks come to the farm, and you're all started, guys. So you now have a poultry farm. You know each and every single step that you're supposed to follow to set up your farm. So I hope, guys, you've enjoyed this video. If you have, don't forget to like the video. If, of course, you've not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, kindly click on the right of this video. That's right here. That will help you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And guys, don't forget that every single week we'll be releasing more and more videos to do with poultry farming. Never miss a video, because 2019 is a year to make sure that you get into poultry farming. Thanks for watching, guys.